Good afternoon. Can you please introduce yourselves to the members of the jury?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Cosette, C-O-S-E-T-T-E, Alvarez, and I am a forensic biologist with the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office Crime Laboratory.
And how long have you been employed there?
It will be 25 years in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what your duties are at the crime lab?
Yes, sure. So my duties consist of performing DNA analysis on various types of samples for different criminal cases, and as well as performing a peer review of those cases, which basically means making sure that the data obtained is accurate and the results are reproducible and accurate and without errors.
Can you just tell the members of the jury briefly about your educational background?
Yes. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Florida International University, as well as a certification in forensic science from FIU as well.
And in addition to your education, do you get any specialized education or training in the field of forensic DNA analysis?
Yes, so essentially before I'm able to work case samples, I have to undergo a series of qualifying exams to be able to demonstrate that I can perform the tests that are needed to be done routinely and that I can obtain reliable results.
And how do you maintain your education in this field after it's completed?
Right, so to continue performing my duties, I am required to undergo what's known as continuing education yearly, at least 8 hours of continuing education, and that is attending conferences or participating in training within the laboratory.
Now, the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office Crime Lab, is that an accredited lab?
Yes, it is an accredited lab.
Who accredits it?
So the agency is known as ANAB, which, forgive me because it's an acronym within an acronym. I don't know why they did that, but it basically stands for American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board.
Okay, and do you know how long the lab has been accredited for?
Yes, so the lab has been accredited since 1989 by an organization that was called ASCLD Lab, American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors, and then they merged with ANAB back in 2019. So since 1989, basically since the lab has conducted DNA testing, we've been accredited.
And what does it actually mean to be accredited?
So accreditation basically means that the laboratory meets and exceeds basically protocols that are in place for reliable and accurate scientific testing.
Now, is it part of the lab's requirements that each analyst take a proficiency test semi-annually?
Yes, in order to be able to still continue doing casework, performing casework, there has to be a proficiency test done every 6 months, basically.
And where do those tests come from?
There are different agencies that are that can administer it, and the agency that administers ours is called Collaborative Testing Services, and they're accredited and they're known. It's an agency that's known for providing this service to many labs within the U.S.
And when you're doing these tests, do you know the results before you take them?
No.
Have you ever failed a proficiency test?
No, I have not.
Right. Now, when it comes to biology and genetics, are you also including certain statistics in that?
Yes, so part of the training deals with being able to perform statistical calculations after results are obtained, after data is obtained.
And do you get specialized training for that as well?
Yes, it has its own training. That includes lectures that were part of my degree in biology, and also training within the laboratory that pertains specifically to performing calculations for different casework samples.
And roughly how many times have you conducted a serological or DNA analysis?
So I have done thousands of tests. So serology, by the way, it's different from DNA testing. That's just preliminary testing for the presence of biological fluids such as blood, semen, saliva, etc. Not every case has that. In fact, this particular case did not have serological testing done. But yes, that's different from DNA testing. And that's considered, serology is considered a preliminary testing.
Okay. Now, let's talk about DNA for a moment and DNA analysis. Can you actually explain what DNA is?
Yes, it's basically the blueprint, genetic blueprint of all living things. It's within our cells, and in this case, forensically, it's what allows us to differentiate between individuals and allows me to make comparisons between data that's obtained in, say, evidence samples and compared to data obtained from like blood or saliva swab from an individual, and try to determine a common origin if there is one.
Okay. And where is DNA actually found in the body?
So it's found all throughout your body, in your skin cells, saliva, blood, biological fluids, hair, you know, like I said, skin cells. When you touch things, you deposit DNA cells from the skin, and those are some of the examples.
Okay. And I know you mentioned blood, saliva, skin. Are the DNA that is in my blood, for example, the same that is in my hair?
Yes.
Okay. Now, each person's DNA, is that unique?
Yes, with the exception of course, identical twins who have the same set of DNA markers.
Now, can one person's DNA change into another? For example, can my DNA become your DNA?
No.
Okay. Even if I mix two DNA samples together?
So if you mix two samples together, you'll get a mixture of DNA profiles, but it doesn't morph into one. You have a representation from both sets of genetic markers.
Okay. Now, when you're looking at somebody's DNA profile, can you tell certain things about them, like hair color, gender, skin color, or not skin color, excuse me, eye color?
So for our purposes, no. The markers that we test in the laboratory, they do not code for hair color or skin color or any of those things. It's basically just data, as if to be able to distinguish between samples. So everyone has their own unique code, and it's basically represented in terms of numbers. It's almost like everybody has their own cell phone number, and that number is unique to the person, so that if I dial a specific number, I should only get that specific person. So that's basically a representation of what we see.
Can you go through the different steps of DNA, the process for DNA analysis?
Yes, so it can be a lengthy process. I'll just do a summary. So we have what we know as the extraction step, and this step is basically to be able to separate the cells from the sample that is provided. A lot of the cases I have, samples come in the form of swabs, like cotton applicators. So it's basically separating the skin cells from the cotton fabric itself. So that would be step one, and purifying that DNA. So then comes a step of quantification, which basically means we're, through the use of instruments, we want to estimate more or less how much DNA there is in the sample. And this is important for the following step, which is known as the amplification step, in which multiple copies, using instruments, multiple copies are made of these different regions that we test through using a series of instruments. I don't know if you guys have heard of PCR, especially with the pandemic, when we were asked, well, did you get a PCR test? Okay, so that protocol, PCR, that's the amplification step. So after multiple copies are made of the different DNA regions that we analyze, we're doing this to be able to have a visual representation on an instrument. So after making multiple copies, these areas or fragments are tagged with different colors, and it allows us to see them on an instrument. So this is the analysis portion. So after the analysis portion, there's an interpretation step. So after the analysis, I obtain data. And this data, like I said, is in the form of numbers. Everybody has their own set of numbers, like a phone number. And it is shown as peaks, and each peak is one number. So in the interpretation step, I'm basically comparing the peaks from the evidence samples to those of whatever standards I've received from an individual to see if there's a match, if they're the same, basically. And the final step would be, let's say we have determined, or I have determined that there's a match, like the DNA information from the evidence matches that of the standard. The next step would be to basically speak as to the significance of that match. What that means is what are the chances that somebody else in the population can have that same set of numbers or that same DNA profile. So it gives weight to the actual match.
Now, when you're doing all that work, are there steps taken to ensure and prevent contamination?
Yes, of course, every single step, at every single step, there are different ways of minimizing contamination.
Now, after you do all these steps, including the statistical analysis that you mentioned a minute ago, is your work reviewed?
Yes, it is peer reviewed.
Why?
Because it's a way to make sure that the data is accurate and reliable, as I said, and there are two different types of reviews. One is a technical review, which in this case, the reviewer will go through the data obtained and they reach their own conclusions, and then they compare it to what I obtain and my own conclusions. And then there's an administrative review, which is basically making sure that there are no typographical errors, that there are no mistakes with spelling or grammar or things like that, but that's the administrative side. And
in this case, what type of analysis did you use?
So the DNA analysis performed here is known as STR DNA analysis.
And what is that?
That stands for short tandem, TANDEM, repeats DNA analysis. Like I said before, what I'm trying to do is test different areas in the DNA molecule that have these numerical representation. So this genetic information that is very different from individual to individual. So these fragments in the DNA are highly repetitive, but the length, but the number of repeated fragments differ from individual to individual. That's what allows me to make these comparisons and determinations.
I think you may have answered this question already, but how actually is a match determined?
So actually, no, that's a good question, because a match is determined by looking at the data present in an evidence sample, like location by location, and then comparing that data to the data obtained, the DNA data obtained from a standard sample. Standard sample is like a buccal swab from an individual, or if they took blood from the individual, that it's particular to them. So whatever is obtained for that standard gets compared to the evidence data, and if all the numbers line up between the evidence and the standard sample, that's considered a match.
Okay, and if those samples match, what is the next step?
So then we would have a statistical calculation performed, basically, like I said before, to determine the probability that somebody else would have that same DNA profile.
What calculation did you use to generate that statistic in this case?
So for a match probability statistic, we would use what's known as the product rule, and that is a statistical calculation that is made to obtain a number that represents the probability that somebody else in the population has that matching DNA profile.
Okay, and when doing that calculation, do you use a database with many different types of DNAs, different races, different ethical?
Yes.
ethnical backgrounds, excuse me.
Yes, so a database is used that contains the frequency of observance of the genetic information for all the DNA types found, so that this product rule calculation can be performed by multiplying all of these different frequencies across. We have 21 different locations in the DNA molecule, and this statistical calculation allows us to multiply all the frequencies, and usually if there's a lot of information, it ends up being a pretty big number at the very end.
Can you explain what a DNA mixture is?
Yes. So we have what is called a single profile, which is what we normally see when I obtain a DNA swab from an individual. You would expect to only see one DNA profile, right? So a mixture of DNA profiles is any sample that you have that gives you more than one DNA profile, so 2 or more DNA profiles within a sample.
Okay, and is there a difference between DNA mixtures with a major and minor component and an indistinguishable mixture?
Okay, so a mixture that has a major or minor DNA component to them, all that means is that within the sample itself, there's obviously more than one person, that's what makes it a mixture, but within that sample, there's a predominant profile or an individual that deposited more DNA than others. So you would see it as a predominant DNA profile, and then what we call minor is whatever is left other than that predominant or major profile. So an undistinguishable would be where you have multiple individuals, but you can't really, because of the way that the mixture formed itself, you can't really separate, or nothing really stands out. They could be both in equal amounts, or the components of the mixture could be in equal amounts, and that's what makes it undistinguishable.
Okay, and can you briefly explain how you go about interpreting DNA mixtures?
Yes, so a mixture that has 2, 3, 4 individuals, the first step would be to try to determine how many possible contributors are in the mixture. After that, as in this case, through the use of ratios, we can approximate, and looking at the mixture itself, we can tell if there's a predominant DNA profile that we would call the major profile. And if there is a predominant profile, then the next step would be to compare that to whatever standards are available, whatever data we have, in this case from a standard sample, compared to that evidence.
Okay. So that was a lot of background about DNA. Let me ask you, have you received any items in this case to analyze under case number PD220625210513?
Yes, I have.
What did you receive?
Your Honor, if I may refer to my notes briefly.
Do you need to refresh your memory?
Yes, I have the report.
So refresh your memory and look up the memory is fresh.
Yes, so I basically received swabs from a firearm.
Okay. Where were these items located prior to your examination of them?
They were located in our evidence vaults with the evidence custodian within the laboratory.
Okay, when you received these items, were they sealed?
Yes, they were sealed, and they had the correct identifier, and they were intact.
Okay, any evidence of tampering whatsoever?
No, I would have indicated that in my notes.
Did you personally open the package and remove the components of it?
Yes, I did.
And I know you mentioned a couple of swabs. Did that also include a buccal swab?
There was a standard, that's what we call a standard sample swab, present as part of the items.
Okay. Now, what did you do with those items prior to the DNA analysis?
So the items came in the form of swabs, like the cotton tip applicators, and I basically taped them to a 3x5, it looks like a 3x5 index card, and put them in a foil-lined envelope and sealed them, just to retain them to take them through DNA analysis at a later time.
Okay, and I want to back up because we mentioned swabs of buccal swabs, and those buccal swabs were of the defendant, is that correct?
There were swabs from the subject, yes.
Okay, and were there other swabs that were submitted to the lab as well?
Yes, there were, but only one set was from, like, as a standard.
Right. The other swabs, though, where were they from?
They were from a firearm.
On which items exactly did you perform that DNA analysis?
So I performed DNA analysis on 3 items. One which was a swab from the front sight of the firearm.
I'm sorry.
Front sight.
Site?
Sight?
SIGHT.
Yes.
Site.
Front sight. Yes. There was a swab from the firearm, all around the firearm, and then lastly a swab of the magazine of the firearm.
And what analysis did you do on those?
Those had DNA analysis, STR DNA analysis performed on them.
Were you able to obtain a DNA profile from these swabs?
Only from 2 of the swabs. The swab from the front sight of the firearm did not contain enough DNA for me to finish the whole process.
Okay, and after you get those profiles, what do you do next?
Well, the next step would be to interpret whatever data I have. In this case, there were 2 separate samples that provided mixtures of DNA profiles.
Okay. What was the result of that comparison?
Basically, I will start with the first one, which was the swab of the firearm. And that sample generated a mixture of DNA profiles. So it was basically at least 3 contributors, including at least 1 male, but there was a predominant or major DNA profile that was obtained at 18 of the 21 locations tested, and that predominant female DNA profile was found to match, and we call this a partial profile. This was found to match the standard obtained from subject D link.
Now, what was the statistic that you calculated for matching that?
So basically, the result of the statistical calculation was that the probability of finding a DNA profile in the population matching this predominant female DNA profile was 1 in 28.78 septillion.
Septillion, that's a very big number.
Yes.
Do you know just offhand what the population of the Earth is?
It's now about 8 billion.
Okay. And septillion would be significantly larger than that?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that one swab. What about the other swabs?
So there was another swab, and that was a swab of the magazine. And that swab also generated a mixture of DNA profiles, so more than 1 DNA profile. And that was of at least 2 contributors, including at least 1 male. But that specific DNA sample was a DNA sample with very low level DNA. And I was not able to make any comparisons because of the type of DNA that was obtained. Again, it was low level, it was not very informative. So the conclusion was that due to the complexity, there were no comparisons made.
Okay. And now, after you obtained that match, what conclusion did you make after all your work that was done?
Well, basically, after performing the statistical calculation, which with the number that I provided, it was determined that because the probability is so rare, it is unreasonable to conclude that somebody else would be the source of that predominant DNA profile found in the mixture of DNA profiles.
Is there a threshold frequency that you also use?
For that specifically, yes, and it's 1 in 320 billion.
Why do you use that threshold?
We use that threshold because it's an approximation of 1,000 times the population of the US itself, which is a little over 300 million. So this is 1,000 times that. So anything above that, we basically conclude that it is unreasonable that somebody else that's not the individual matching would be the source of that DNA profile.
Okay. And If you know the answer, do you know what the population of Miami-Dade County is?
It's a little over 2 million.
And the state of Florida?
It's, I guess, around 20 million, 23 million.
And you mentioned that the United States is about 300 million?
Yes,
And
340 million.
The entire Earth is 8 billion, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions, John.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, ma'am, you said that as far as the firearm is concerned, you only found testable DNA on 2 of the swabs, correct?
There were only 2 that had enough DNA present for me to perform the full DNA analysis.
Right. One was the magazine, and the other was just the firearm, correct?
Correct.
Any specific area of the firearm?
The description I obtained was just swab of firearm, no real description as to where.
So we can't say precisely on what part of the firearm the swab came from.
No, I cannot. No.
So you said that there was a mixture of DNA, and I'm focusing on the swab of the firearm right now. You said there was a mixture of DNA, including at least 3 people, and at least one of them is male. Is that correct?
That's right.
Now, did you, from that swab, were you able to obtain that complete male profile?
No, I was not.
So if you were to receive, for example, a DNA swab from a male who may or may not have come in contact with that gun, and you had that swab, would you have been able to test it against this swab of the firearm?
In this case, I couldn't have made a direct comparison because of the complexity of that minor component that I spoke about. The matching profile, the standard profile matched the predominant. What was clear was the predominant DNA profile. That was a female. So anything, including the male, would be part of that minor component that I wouldn't be able to really make any determinations as to whether somebody is included or not.
So even if you had a profile from a male who could have come in contact with that gun, and even though you wouldn't be able to match it, you can, as you sit here, you can tell us, you are able to tell us definitively that at least one male at some point came in contact with this gun because their DNA was on it, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with major and minor profiles, is it sometimes, not necessarily all the time, but sometimes isn't it common for the major contributor to a DNA mixture to be the last person to have contact with the firearm or with the object that you're testing?
That's very difficult to ascertain. We really cannot, as a DNA analyst, I cannot tell you based on what the mixture looks like when there is no time, really no time frame or how. None of those things can be answered, only the data basically that I obtain.
Let me give you an example, and you can tell me if this is reasonably possible based on your knowledge and expertise. Let's say that an individual, a man named Pedro, grabbed this firearm that you tested and pistol whipped somebody with it. Right? Pistol whipped somebody with it multiple times. Then, 5 days later, a female named Daisy shoots that firearm. And then shortly after that, that gun is seized and taken to police, and it ultimately finds its way to your desk. Is it likely or reasonable that the minor contributor could be the man Pedro, who I just mentioned, and the major contributor could be Daisy because she was the one who most recently had the gun and fired it?
Well, no, we can't really say that because there are so many variables that determine how much DNA is left on an item. People, what we call, are shedders. Some are non-shedders of DNA. Some people shed DNA cells more than others. It's very difficult to determine really what level of activity or order of activities or anything of the sort.
And I understand that you can't tell us exactly because you don't have all the information. You only have limited information.
Correct.
But based on the information I just gave you, can you reasonably rule out that scenario that I just laid out for you?
No, I cannot rule out any scenario because I can only tell you what the data says.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all.
Of course.
Yes. To be clear, the majority of the DNA was female belonging to D-Link.
The predominant profile in the mixture, or what we call the major profile, was a profile matching that of subject D-Link.
Okay, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You can step down.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you please introduce yourselves to the members of the jury?
Good afternoon. My name is Danny Moraves. I work for the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office. I'm currently in the Homestead Bureau.
How long have you worked there?
I've worked for Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office for about 8 years and in the Homicide Unit for 4.
And were you working in your capacity as a police officer on June 25th, 2022?
Yes, sir.
How did you first become involved in this case?
So at approximately 4:15 on that day in the morning, I was handling the phones that day in the Homicide Bureau. There was a call that came in reference to a death. Homestead Police Officer Nicholson was reporting a homicide that occurred that morning, and he shared some details about that.
Okay. What details did he share with you?
Well, initially he mentioned that Homestead police officers were dispatched in reference to a female that found a deceased body or a male that was shot. Officers responded to that area and located the individual. And additionally, he added that the reporting person was later identified as Daisy Link, who happened to be the girlfriend of the individual that was shot.
Did he advise if he observed a blood trail on scene?
He did.
Okay. Did he tell you where that blood trail was to or from?
Essentially, it was from the residence where the two individuals that were involved, Daisy Link and the victim, resided, to where the body of the victim was found.
Did he also advise of the incident location itself?
1237 Northwest 14th Street in Homestead.
And is that in Miami-Dade County?
That is in Miami-Dade County.
Now, I know you said that you were handling the phones that day for homicide. Did you contact anyone in reference to this case?
Yeah, so the structure of the Homicide Bureau is one person is handling the phones, and essentially there's a team that's on call. That on-call team that day happened to be my team as well, although I was working the midnight shift. So I essentially called my own sergeant, who called out the rest of the team.
Did you yourself respond to that incident location?
I did.
When you arrived, what did you do, if anything at all?
So I was the first detective that arrived on scene. Officer Nicholson and several other Homestead Police Department officers were already there, as they are the initial department that responded. So as the first detective that was there, I went to Officer Nicholson. He's the lead officer on the scene. At that point, there was a female that was later identified as Daisy Link, sitting essentially on the scene. She was kind of lingering around, but seated in front of the scene, which was a little odd to me. And that's when I approached her.
Okay. Now, you said it was a little odd that she was kind of lingering around. Why?
Well, primarily she was in the middle of the scene, which is not something that you normally see. Usually the scene is secure. There's not anybody walking around or anything of that nature. On top of the fact that she was a reporting person, she had a relationship to the victim. Those were just things that were, raised a couple red flags for me.
Okay. So when you approached her, what, if anything, happened?
So I approached her, I verified her name, her relationship. I tried to get some further information on who this person is and what her involvement is, aside from being the one that called 911. She was very apprehensive, almost like irritated with my presence. At that point,
relevance will strike.
We'll take a quick coffee break now. It's going to be about 10-15 minutes. Okay? Set everybody and keep walking.
All right, the jurors.
The objection to Mr. Lamas' jury stand for coffee break. The objection, I can sustain it in front of the jury. Mr. Rubio will ask a question. I'm not going to strike it. He just started his testimony, and looks like we're all on the same page now. Okay.
So I'm a little confused, I guess, because you could pull the court overrule the objection.
I did?
You did.
Oh, all right.
I think it's entirely relevant to the defendant's demeanor confounded by the robbery video of her being aggressive with other officers as well, specifically Danny Moraves. They're claiming that she was a victim, that she was scared. That they couldn't take her to the homicide headquarters. They took her to robbery instead. Defense is claiming that Ms. Link was acting self-defense, was scared, etc. Her being aggressive to detectives trying to question her is entirely relevant to the determinations of base subsequently making, including bringing her to the scene, placing her in the back of the police vehicle, taking her to headquarters to interview her. It's entirely relevant.
So, Judge, and I know we already discussed this, but my concern is that this witness was teetering on volunteering that Ms. Link was refusing to cooperate or refusing to speak to police, adding issues that he wasn't asked about, saying that she was aggressive or what have you. That's improper. He's trying to inject himself and make an argument to the jury. He needs to answer the questions, and I think he's going to do that now. At least I hope he will. If he doesn't, I'll do something about it.
Question that's asked on some level, Mr. Rubin needs a little leeway to lead you, so we don't go into areas that we're not supposed to. Detective, he'll do so.
So am I allowed to ask if she was being aggressive?
You can ask, what was her demeanor?
Well, I want
How was
clarity.
she acting? What did she look like? Was she red? Was she flushed? Etc. How was she clothed? Yeah.
Okay.
But it can't just be, did you encounter her? And what was that like? And blah, and you have a narrative with adjectives that are not responsive to the question.
Understood.
I know the defense talked about self-defense in their openings, but what you all say is not evidence. So at some point,
It might not be evidence, Your Honor, but it does open the door to make certain arguments, just like I mentioned that, I think it was yesterday too, when I filed a motion for request for judicial notice. It might not be evidence, but it opens the door to certain arguments.
at some point, it may be too much to prove that. So right now, the self-defense claim, it's there, mostly because of the opening statement, and a little bit based on a hypothetical that Ket Cte Alvarez answered. Some of it regarding pictures or injuries, those are not evidence yet. But I would just be careful eliciting information at this stage when a full self-defense claim hasn't been laid yet in front of the jury. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, does that make sense, Mr. Tomas? So there may be an opportunity where, unfortunately, if you want to make a call to call back witnesses or call rebuttal witnesses, depending on whether or not the self-defense claim is fully flushed out, that may be the more appropriate time, okay? All right, I think we're on the same page. Just go ahead and bring back the jury.
All right, the jurors.
All 9 jurors are accounted for. Lawyers, this link can be seen. Thank you.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. So Detective, let's back up a little bit, okay? You've mentioned Daisy Link, Miss Link a few times. Do you see Daisy Link in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
Can you please point her out and describe her by what she's wearing?
She's sitting right over here. It's a black floral shirt.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant. Okay. Now, going back to when you arrived on scene, when you first arrived on scene, there were police officers there?
Homestead police officer.
Okay. And Daisy Link was on scene. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Where exactly was she on scene, if you remember?
So directly in front of 1237 Northwest 14th Street.
And that
Right
would
in
be her residence?
the residence, yes, right in front of the door.
Did you approach her?
I did.
How was her demeanor when you approached?
So originally she's sitting down. So, you know, from a distance, you just see a woman sitting down. But once I came up to her, it's when she became a little aggressive, in my opinion.
Okay. Were you concerned with her presence on scene?
100%, yes.
Why?
It's not normal to have somebody sitting in the middle of a crime scene. Regardless, this crime scene was a little larger than normal, and she was sitting right in the middle of it.
When you first approached her, was she a person of interest?
At that point, no, I had just gotten there. All I knew was that she had a relationship with the victim, and that's from what Officer Nicholson told me.
Did you attempt to remove her from the scene so that way you can do your police work?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what did that entail?
So interacting with her and trying to verify her information, and I like to respect the person I'm speaking to, so I asked her her name and whatnot. That's when she became a little aggressive, ultimately
So before we get to that, tell me exactly what you mean by she was being aggressive.
It was more of her demeanor, just the lack of wanting to cooperate, lack of wanting.
Objection, improper comment, and speculation by this witness.
Sustained.
To be clear though, she does not have to cooperate with you.
She does not.
Now, moving forward, what, if anything, happened with Miss Link between you and her?
So Miss Link, when I went to detain her and put handcuffs on her, attempted to grab a white chair that was next to me, or next to her, and tried to swing it. That time I was able to detain her, and with the help of Homestead police officer that came and helped me as well.
When you were detaining her, what did you specifically do?
I put handcuffs on her, held her arms as any other arrest would take place.
Why were you detaining her at that point?
At that point, one, she's in the middle of the crime scene. Two, she became a person of interest, and we wanted to just remove that person from the crime scene. That way there's no evidence that was tampered with. That way she would be monitored inside of a police vehicle, and we can transport her to our headquarters for an interview.
Did you also pat her down when you detained her?
I did, yes.
Why did you pat her down?
That's normal officer safety. Make sure she doesn't have any weapons or anything on her that can harm me or herself.
Did you locate anything on her person?
Yeah, there was a cell phone and a car key.
Okay, and did that car key belong to any vehicle in particular?
The car key ended up belonging to a Chevy Trax.
Now, when you found that car key, or if you noticed it at all when you were patting Miss Link down, what, if anything, was the defendant's reaction to you finding that car key?
So the car key was in her pocket, and she attempted to, remember she's sitting down at this point when I go to detain her, she attempted to kind of roll over onto that side to kind of hide what she had in her pocket.
Objection, speculation.
Did you do anything else on the scene?
At that point, we placed her in the vehicle, and I was instructed to author some warrants.
Okay. Before we talk about your warrants and the process for obtaining a warrant, let's talk about if you contacted anybody other than the other homicide detectives. Did you speak to anybody?
Yeah, so there was 2 children at the residence. I learned that their grandmother was local. I contacted the grandmother to have them come get picked up.
And did she respond to the scene?
She did, yes.
Was anybody else with her?
Crystal Barreto, which ends up being, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Daisy Link's sister, which was the daughter of the grandmother.
Okay. Now, when they responded to the scene, both the defendant's grandmother, Josephina Perez, as well as Crystal Barreto, did you approach them?
Yeah, so they weren't allowed to the immediate scene. Obviously, it's cordoned off by crime scene tape. So I walked to them at the intersection, and at that point, that's when I kind of informed them of everything that was going on.
And what was either of their reaction when you informed them what was going on?
So Crystal Barreto immediately, spontaneously stated the words, "If he is dead, Daisy must have shot him."
Okay. Now, to be clear again, Crystal doesn't have to speak to you.
Correct.
She doesn't have to cooperate.
No.
Did you attempt to gain further information after Ms. Barreto spontaneously stated this?
I would just object and move to strike as to the hearsay statement this witness just volunteered.
So sustained.
Judge, can we go to sidebar?
Sure. The objection from the last question and answer is overruled. If you want to re-ask it,
Sure.
go ahead.
When you approached Crystal Barreto and you identified yourself and what you were there for, did she do anything in response?
She made a statement to me.
Okay, did you prompt her for a statement?
No, it was a spontaneous statement.
And what was that statement?
If he is dead, Daisy must have shot him.
And he being the victim in this case?
Correct.
Okay. Now, at this point in time that Crystal and her mother and you were on scene, had you identified any shooters?
No, at that point, no.
Did you have any subjects?
No.
So this was essentially the first information that you're getting that there was somebody who may be a person of interest.
Yeah, at that point, it kind of built a storyline for me.
I'm sorry, at that point,
It kind of built like a storyline for me.
it built like a,
Storyline?
thank you.
Now, again, Ms. Barreto, her mother, even the defendant don't have to cooperate with you, right?
That's correct.
Did you seek to obtain any additional information from Ms. Barreto?
Yeah, I attempted to speak to her and figure out what her relationship was and what information she may have to provide us. And at that point, she didn't.
Objection, there's no question pending on that topic.
So the answer is, yes, you tried to obtain information, and now Mr. Urbina is going to ask you a question.
Did she provide any information?
She did not provide any information.
Did she refuse to provide information?
Yes,
What was her demeanor when you were trying to obtain this information?
just a normal conversation, but they didn't want to provide information.
Now, let's back up. I know you mentioned how homicide works a little bit, but can you explain how homicide teams themselves works in your unit?
Okay, so there's essentially 8 homicide teams, 4 in the day shift, 4 in the afternoon shift. Each team has a supervisor, and under that supervisor, normally 4 to 5 detectives within that team.
And when there is a homicide, is there a lead appointed, or you guys kind of just do your own thing?
No, so there's a rotation of teams, and then within your team, there's also a rotation of who gets cases. So that way, the same detective doesn't get multiple cases back to back.
Were you the lead on this case?
I was not the
Who
lead.
was?
Detective Joseph Cruz.
Now, when leads are appointed, are you relaying all the information that you learned to the lead?
Yes, we provide any information that we learn to the lead detective.
Are you also given assignments by the lead?
Yes.
Now, what, if any, assignments did Detective Cruz give you?
I was given the task of authoring a search warrant for the residence.
And the residence being that 1237 address that you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about warrants for a second. What actually is a search warrant?
So essentially, it's a document that is requesting to go and receive, obtain property from a location or a vehicle, even a device that is reviewed by myself, a supervisor, an attorney, ultimately the judge either granting it or denying it, and allowing us to enter that structure.
Now, I know you kind of mentioned the process in which, whether no judge grants it or not, but I want to back up even further. Is this something that you just write up and then walk into a house, or is there actually a process for that?
No, it's a very lengthy process.
Okay, and you mentioned an attorney. What attorney has to review a search warrant?
The state attorney, whoever's on call for that week.
Okay, and a judge also has to review that?
Correct.
And they have the choice whether or not they can grant it or not?
Correct.
Was a search warrant granted in this case?
Yes.
And that search warrant was for that residence?
Yes.
Was that warrant executed?
Yes.
Okay, what, if anything, did you, well, let me ask you this. Did you execute that warrant?
I was part of the team that executed it, yes.
And what does it mean when you execute a warrant?
So essentially, documentation of that location that we have a warrant for, searching that residence for any items of evidentiary value. That's the gist of it, yeah.
Did you walk into that residence?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you see there?
So the house is, there's obviously children items in there, female items in there, and adult male clothing and shoes.
Was that the only warrant that was executed in this case?
No, there was other warrants.
Can you tell us what other warrants?
I had authored a vehicle warrant for a Chevy Trax, and also a cellular device that I obtained from Miss Link when I detained her.
Let's talk about that cell phone warrant, and we'll go to the Chevy Trax warrant in a moment, but that cell phone belonged to the defendant?
It belonged to the defendant, yes.
And do you know what number was associated with that cell phone?
So I know it's 786562. Can't remember the last four. I'm sorry.
If your report will refresh your recollection, please refer to your report.
The cell phone number is not on here.
Okay. I'll move on then.
Okay.
Was that warrant executed?
Yes, it was.
And why did you obtain a search warrant for the defendant's cell phone?
So when we were doing the residential search warrant, there was Ring camera, so we believe that there was a Ring camera app on the cell phone.
Now, when you executed that warrant, what, if anything, of evidentiary value did you yourself observe?
I watched Ring camera footage.
Okay. Let's talk about that cell phone for a moment as well. Was there also a warrant to further get into that cell phone?
Yeah, so the warrant is to be able to search the device.
And you authored that?
I authored it, and I'm the one that went through the process of getting it granted.
Okay. And do you have to turn that phone over to somebody to actually execute that warrant as well?
Yeah, we provided to a forensics analyst.
Do you recall what analyst received the phone?
Sergeant Sergio Cremacini.
Are you aware if he was able to get into the phone?
He was.
Was he able to download the contents of that phone?
Yes, he did.
Showing defense counsel it's been previously marked for identification purposes as one vessel. Yeah. And without objection, moving it into evidence, Your Honor.
Judge, that is correct, but if we can go sidebar quickly.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Introducing evidence.
State Exhibit 1S, marked for identification, now becomes State Exhibit 16, Judge.
16.
Okay. I'm going to skip ahead before we talk about the actual video itself. At the point in time that you're executing those warrants and reviewing this evidence, is the defendant on scene?
No, she's not.
Where was she?
She was transported to the Miami-Dade headquarters, which is where our office is.
Who else was there?
Detective Melanie Janoris and Detective Joseph Cruz.
Okay. Did you relay the information that you learned about the Ring camera to them?
Yes, I did.
And do you know what they were doing at the point in time that you relayed this information to them?
They were attempting to interview Daisy Link.
Okay. Now, what, if anything, did you do next?
At that point, we had already executed the search warrants.
Okay.
I relayed the information to Detective Janoris.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you canvass the area?
So we did an area canvass for surveillance footage, yeah.
Okay. What is an area canvass?
So we're essentially going door by door, all the neighbors, trying to see if anybody heard, saw anything, or if they have any surveillance footage at their residence.
Okay. Now, were you successful in locating any additional cameras?
So there was one residence that did have surveillance footage that we observed.
Do you know where that residence was?
So the address is 1300 Northwest 15th Street.
Do you recall about how far away from the incident location that residence is?
It's not far at all.
Like right around the corner?
Yeah, right around the corner.
Did you make contact with the homeowner?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall his name?
Robert or Roberto Cisneros.
Did he advise that he had surveillance cameras?
He did. He allowed us into his residence to view them.
Okay. Now, you viewed those cameras yourselves?
I did.
Before we talk about what you saw on those, was there any evidence that Mr. Cisneros had destroyed, altered, or tampered in any way with those cameras?
No, not at all.
Was there any wires that were cut?
None that I observed, no.
Anything destroyed?
No.
Okay. And did you watch those cameras with Mr. Cisneros?
Yeah, he allowed us into his home and allowed us, essentially they're experts in their own system, so he allowed us and showed us what was on his cameras.
Okay. What did those cameras show?
Judge, I would object. It's cumulative. It's already been presented to the jury.
or your objection? You can answer.
So the victim is observed on the cameras walking westbound down an alleyway. He appears to be slumped over, not slumped over, but kind of like dragging himself. He hides in some bushes. At that point, we see a vehicle that drives eastbound in the alleyway. After that, we see the victim come back out of that bushy area of the backyard and eventually collapse on the ground.
Did you, you said you saw a vehicle. Do you recall what vehicle that was?
It's the vehicle, the Chevy Trax, that was initially unseen.
Okay, and that's the same Chevy Trax that you authored a search warrant for?
Yes.
And that same Chevy Trax had a search warrant that was granted and executed on?
Yes.
Did you see anything else on those cameras?
You could see a person, female, who I believed was Daisy Linked at that time, to go up to the body of the victim. At some point, she goes up to the body, manipulates the body of some sort, go back to the vehicle, and then come back to the body.
Now, you yourself are not a video retrieval detective, correct?
I am not.
Okay. Now, when you want to take possession of certain videos, certain surveillance videos, do you also call out for those officers?
Yeah, so there's a video forensics unit that will respond, and they are the experts in all types of systems, and they retrieve the footage that we request from them.
The video that you just described, was that consistent with anything else that was on scene?
Consistent with the blood trail that we had seen on scene, the vehicle matching the key as well that we had obtained. That was pretty much it.
Do you know if there was a time delay at all between when a 911 call went out to when the victim may or may not have been shot?
Yes, I believe it was about 10 minutes.
Okay. And are you aware if that footage that you just described also is consistent with a time delay in that?
Yeah, like I mentioned, you can see the female coming out of the vehicle, going back and forth from inside the vehicle into the body. And that's consistent with the 10 minutes of time delay.
Now, I want to go back to the conversation that we had about Detective Jimenez, Detective Cruz, and what you viewed on ring camera footage. Now, I know that you said that they were in the middle of attempting to speak to Miss Lang, right?
Yes.
Now, what, if anything, did you specifically relay to them?
So I had watched a ring camera video on the phone that depicted Miss Link with a firearm, and some audio that was attached to that video as well. I asked Detective Jimenez to be a text. If she was free, she called me. I informed her with that information.
Permission to publish evidence, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Now playing what has been entered into evidence, portion of state's evidence 16. I'm just going to skip ahead to around the 5-minute. heard what sounded like a pop. Was that consistent with anything?
With gunfire.
Okay. And to be clear, this is the video that you relate, the information that you watch and relate to Detective Janoris?
Yeah, it was on the Ring app from her phone. I watched it, and I gave the information to Detective Janoris.
And by her phone, who do you mean?
Daisy Link's phone.
Okay. And this video itself, is this inconsistent with anything that officers learned on scene from the defendant?
Objection, calls for a conclusion, making promise.
Sustained, he's gonna ask another question.
At this point in time, did you believe you knew who shot Pedro Jimenez after watching
Objection,
this?
invading province of the jury.
Sustained, he's gonna ask another question.
Moment to confer, Your Honor.
Sure.
I'll ask this. Detective, what did we hear Miss Link say on video?
I mean, it's very grainy in this video. It's a lot more clear when I watched it, but it talks about hitting a major artery. It talks about Daisy Link saying, "You'll be fine," and then asking, "Are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital?"
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
So, sir, other than what we just heard right now in that video, is there any other audio in that video that's, in your view, relevant or important to this matter?
There was you can hear a male in the beginning of the video. You can't really tell. It sounds very far out.
Can't tell?
I can't tell.
You didn't think that what was in there was important or relevant to your investigation?
It is relevant, yes.
Okay.
You go to 5 minutes.
That sound like, do it! I want to die! Is that what that sounded like to you? Is that what that sounded like to you?
To be honest, sir, the only thing I can hear from here is the word "die." I can't hear anything else.
Okay.
Sorry.
Would you agree that that was Pedro Jimenez saying that? Screaming that, actually.
Speculation.
Overruled, you can answer.
It's unknown, but based on the information that we know, they were the only two there, so it can be assumed that that was him, yes.
Okay. So you would agree that this video shows that Pedro Jimenez was screaming, do it, or, well, something that sounded like, do it, I want to die, shortly before he was shot.
I can say that I hear Pedro Jimenez saying the word "die." I can't hear anything else in there.
You can't make out the rest?
I can't make out with this video right now. I can't make it out.
That's all right. The jury probably can.
Okay.
All right. So you were the one who arrested Miss Link, correct?
I detained Mrs. Link
You put cuffs on her?
with the assistance of officers from Homestead Police Department.
Well, who's the one who put cuffs on her?
It was either me or one of the officers that assisted me. I believe it was me or Nicholson.
You don't remember if it was you?
Not 100%, no.
Okay. When you put the cuffs on her, did you do it in front of her 7-year-old child?
Judge, objection. Relevance.
Overruled, you can answer.
Did you do it in front of her 7-year-old child?
I believe the children were inside the residence.
They weren't present?
They're in the residence.
So they were there right in front of you when that happened, right?
Objection.
No.
Answer.
Hold on. Overruled, were you in front of him or back when you put the cross on him?
No.
All right. Crystal Barreto, you said that on the scene, was it on the scene where you met with her?
right outside of the scene, crime scene tape,
So-
say the intersection.
So you're saying you approached her, and then when you approached her, without you asking anything or saying anything, she spontaneously made that statement to you?
No, there was conversation initially about who I was, my purpose of being there, the purpose of why they were called to the scene to begin with was essentially for them to get the children.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you were concerned about Miss Link being on the scene. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Were you aware that she was told she couldn't leave the scene?
I was not aware.
Would that change your concern if you had known that?
No, at the end of the day, my job is to maintain and make sure that that scene is taken care of and no evidence is tampered with. And upon my arrival, I witnessed somebody essentially sitting in the middle of the scene.
Well, it sounded like, correct me if I'm wrong, but a moment ago, when you were asked about it, you made it sound like she was there somewhere where she was not supposed to be. Was that your belief at the time?
I'm not saying that she wasn't supposed to be there. At the end of the day, that's her residence. What I am saying is that that is a crime scene, and no one other than police officers should be in that crime scene,
Agreed.
and the deceased person.
Agreed, but up until a moment ago, according to your testimony, you didn't know that she had been told that she couldn't leave.
If I wasn't there, I'm not aware of what the officers may or may not have told her.
So you weren't aware of that until a moment ago, is that correct?
I don't understand your question, sir.
You weren't aware that an officer told her you can't leave until I told you a moment ago, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Officer, was there any evidence, let me ask you this, was there any evidence of the victim having a weapon on him?
No, there was not.
Was there a firearm found on him?
There was not.
Was there a knife found on him?
There was not.
So him saying, "I want to die," to Daisy, she was pointing a gun at him at that point in time?
Objection, calls for speculation, it's not a video.
Sustained.
Judge, can we go sidebar?
No, we're gonna ask another question.
The point in time that Pedro says that, is there any evidence whatsoever that he was armed?
There was no evidence that Pedro was armed with any type of weapon.
Was there evidence that Daisy Link was armed?
Yeah, the video shows that.
And she's armed with what?
A firearm.
So it'd be a likely conclusion then, we'll actually strike that. And that same firearm was found on scene?
Later on in that day, yes, it was.
And that firearm that was used to kill Pedro Jimenez?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Judge, briefly, just based on your question.
Go ahead.
The firearm that was found on scene later on, it was found because Daisy Link told you where to look, right?
Actually, no, sir.
No?
No.
Did you find it?
I was present when it was found.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You can now step down.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, folks, I'm going to give you an instruction. It's essentially a limiting instruction. This detective testified about steps he took in his investigation. So, to the extent that Crystal Barreto made a statement to him that informs his decision-making as a detective on scene, it doesn't go to the truth of what Crystal Barreto told him, okay? Another limiting instruction. His conclusions of what the video shows and what he believes is said on the video also informs his decision-making as a detective. At the end of the day, what's in the video and what is said on the video is subject to your interpretation and yours alone. You should not rely on any other testifying witnesses' conclusions of that. You are the triers of fact. You review the evidence and you come to your own independent conclusions of what the evidence says and what it shows. Why don't we just take a quick break in the jury room? Thank you.
All right, the jurors.
Our jury's in there. I felt that was necessary. You walk in. I felt motion to check you all, if anyone wants access to the record. Go ahead and let me know now.
Judge, I'm just going to object. I don't believe that. I understand the second curative instruction. You and I had a trial similar. I understand that one. The first objection, I do not believe the court should sua sponte leave that curative. I do not believe it comes close to invading the province of the jury. Yes.
Well, let me ask you this. When you went sidebar, why is it that you wanted to elicit the statement from Crystal?
Because it directly goes to the investigation, her becoming a subject at that point in time. It's an a spontaneous statement, which in and of itself is the exception to the hearsay rule. It was not a offer for the truth of the matter, sir, but for the purposes of eliciting a spontaneous statement. I do not.
Does it inform the next steps of his investigation?
It does, but I don't think that is for the court to instruct the jury on. I understand why the court did it, but.
Well, I'd like to do this once, and I'd like to do this fairly once. Mr. Delas, do you want access to the record?
No.
Okay. Any objections to giving these limited instructions to the jury?
No.
For what it's worth, it goes hand in hand with jury instructions about coming to their own conclusions about the evidence. All right, let's take a 10-minute break. How many other witnesses do you guys have today?
I think this is a good stopping point for today.
Told them to verify first.
So we have 3 witnesses left. The Melanie Norris, our ME, and our phone witness. Those are going to be the lengthier of the testimonies. I understand you wanted to go to 4:30, but 5:30, as I mentioned this morning, I think that this is a good stopping point because at this point in time, it's the defendant's statement and her cell phone and the medical.
How long do you think these witnesses will be tomorrow?
I mean, a medical examiner takes about an hour, hour and a half. Same thing with the phone dump expert. There's a handful of things that I want to present through him. And then the defendant's statement is more or less 2 hours. And then we're done. We're planning on resting at that point.
The substance of her statement is 2 hours.
I would say somewhere around that. I haven't done all the redactions and limiting of it.
Norris is not here for us. So
She's not, no.
what about the phone dump?
He's not either, and I have not yet had an opportunity to sit down with him on the phone.
All right, I'll take your word that we have 3 more witnesses to go, and then we'll rest tomorrow. So Mr. Delas is going to have on a case. Probably going to be Monday.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Tuesday.
Yes, and we've already discussed that. We have 2 depositions scheduled for Monday morning.
You're okay with that schedule?
Yes, ma'am.
If you're gonna put on a case Tuesday? All right, so I guess I'll bring in the jury, I'll listen for the day. Okay, let's go ahead and run down.
All right, so the jurors. All right. Thank you. We're missing one.
All 9 jurors are accounted for, we can be seated, lawyers and counsel is also present. All right, folks, for the state's case in chief, there's 3 more witnesses. Those will be called tomorrow. I know we're a little off schedule. We're not going to end at 5:30. We're going to end now. The state will finish their case tomorrow. Remember, we all cleared each other's schedule for next week, so we can anticipate coming back on Tuesday. Tomorrow we'll plan again, 10:30 to 5:30. We end a little early. Try that thing on Friday afternoon. I'm going to release you in a few minutes. Again, just like we did yesterday, we'll coordinate with Roberto. We'll meet with them in this building. Please do not do any research about this case. Please do not look up the places or people that you've heard about. Please don't discuss this case with anyone else. I trust that you're going to follow my instructions. Again, if anyone talks to you about this case, please report it to me and or Roberto. I think that's all.
Yes.
As regarding the warnings that are, oh, if you see any of the witnesses, please ignore them. They're instructed to ignore you as well. All right, if there's nothing else, any other instructions? Okay, thank you all. See you tomorrow, and please be here just like you guys were great today. Okay, you start on time with us tomorrow. Thank you.
Right, 10:30 tomorrow.
It's 10:30. We'll start so everybody else can get to 10:30.
Yes, ma'am. Third floor, 10:15.
I wanted to put something on the record for the last regarding the cumulativeness of Moraves testifying about what he saw on the video that Cisneros was already testified to. Remember that the body worn camera that was already introduced shows the scene with Mr. Jimenez. And so to the extent that you thought that Moraves was testifying to was somehow detrimental to your client, I think that's why you were rejected regarding, well, he used the word manipulate the body, right? But from what we saw from the body on camera,
Judge, this is different. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. There's two different things, right? There's body worn camera where the defendant is seen standing over the victim as he dies, but then also the video that he was describing is the defendant who will be saying in her statement that she went in and was removing items from his pockets. That's what he was talking about.
okay, all right. I thought it was along the lines of the body on camera shows her upset and trying to render aid. You're saying that that's different from what?
That's a different video itself. So there's the video that Detective Morales viewed with Robert Cisneros, which does not show that because that wasn't captured. It shows the defendant exiting the vehicle, going up to the victim's body, removing items from the victim's body, going back to the Chevy tracks, putting them in there, which is consistent with other evidence that has already been introduced, and then going back to the victim.
What's in the Chevy tracks that would be on Mr. Jimenez?
I believe it was his wallet and his phone, if I'm not mistaken.
But none of that was introduced.
It was. There's photographs of
And the point I was trying to make is, I believe that Morales' testimony on the issue of the video is, while it might be argued as cumulative, it's not harmless in view of the context of what's already been introduced regarding the body worn camera.
It's not harmless.
No, at all. He's gonna, I'm sorry, harmful. I think the defense is going to say something along the lines of it's harmful. There's 23 minutes of body worn camera where she's distraught, trying to assist him, trying to render aid. Can you show me the photographs of what's been evidence?
Yeah.
For what's in the car?
And I know there's at least one photo of like a $100 bill or something like that as well.
That I thought was on the,
Hey, you guys want to comment on this? Yes, it was. Yeah, you know this better than I do. For the Chevy tracks, and there was just, yes.
So tracks on the phone.
Yes.
Was Morales.
Correct.
Yes, Judge.
So, Judge, I was mistaken. I thought we introduced the photos of the wallet. We didn't.
Oh, see, I'm not so inventing things that I think are missing, right?
We
I don't need a pat on my back. I'm just trying to keep track of everything.
No, of course.
Again, everybody knows things about the space. When you're looking at it from a 30,000 foot view,
I thought it was in the packet that we had put
we may
together.
not be compartmentalizing like we're supposed to. Can I see it?
But there's photos of the car, though, right?
One part, yeah, of the outside of it, not the inside.
There's photos of the Chevy tracks itself.
So which witness is supposed to introduce these items?
That would have been Officer Zapata.
Oh, it's Exhibit 12.
Yes.
So it's in evidence.
Yes. Not the Chevy tracks. It's in it itself is in evidence, which the defendant is seen exiting which is now also in evidence as well, via the defendant's phone dump. We see her get inside the vehicle and drive off, as well as arrive on scene.
12 has $100 bills outside.
Right.
Is there a packet of photographs relating to what was seized from the shed tracks?
We're not going to be introducing what was seized via the search warrant.
So how is her manipulating the body through Morales? I guess it's just to show that she was near the body.
No, that she, well, so her testimony via her statement will be introduced tomorrow. In her statement, she says, detectives confront her with, you pulled something out of his pockets. She says, I had to in order to stop the bleeding or something because his pants were tight. That is corroborative of the video that Robert Cisneros, Detective Morales, and I believe Detective Hubbard also testified to, in which they themselves viewed Miss Link getting outside of the car, approaching the body, going up to the body, taking items out of the body.
So that's the relevance.
Yes, and then returning back to that vehicle.
Are there photographs of what was in her car that you all believe you can reasonably argue was on Mr. Jimenez?
Yes, those exist. Unfortunately, we didn't put them in the packet. We're going to call Detective Zapata now and make sure that she comes back so we can get those last few photographs into evidence.
Okay. Does that make sense why I'm bringing this up? Because I was concerned with your objection, but I thought that what was on the body on camera was essentially in evidence, and it's a little bit different than Morales' testimony, but now I can appreciate why Morales' testimony of the quote-unquote manipulating the body is different than what's on the body on camera.
Right.
Does that make sense, Mr.
Yeah,
Thomas?
it's
Right?
just not.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is it that she removes from?
I believe it's his wallet and his cell phone.
So. And she says those items were in the way from her and they.
Correct. She says his pants were really tight and she had to get his pants off.
You're not accusing her of stealing
No.
from the body.
No.
So it's just a question of, I guess, why she was over the body and how did things that you believe were on this person end up in her body.
Correct.
All right. Should we go over or you guys gonna go over her statement? And then
So there's a couple things I think that it's important that we do discuss, and I was going to bring it up with the court didn't. I intend to, so the entire statement itself is about 11 hours, give or take. I am not going to publish, and I'm piecing them together, any point in time when the defendant is alone in that room. I'm also going to be removing, when the defendant changes, she changes on camera. I don't think it's appropriate to publish that or give that to the jury. I'm also going to be removing the portion of the defendant being read Miranda for the first time and invoking Miranda. I do intend to have Detective Jimenez testify to, I was getting her fingerprinted, she approached me, said something spontaneous to the effect of, I had to do it or something like that. So then Detective Jimenez says, in order for me to speak to you, I have to read Miranda. Then she does read Miranda. So that will all be...
In context, the second Miranda, will the jury know that is the second form?
I'm not intending to have anything mentioned about her invoking whatsoever. I don't think I can.
Mr. Thomas, do you object to that, I guess, redaction from first Miranda waiver into second one?
No objection.
Because I think at the end of the day, you probably won't understand the end, right? As a matter of strategy, I mean, look, you can, if you want to cross-examine on the reality of the Miranda waiver, you can, but.
I'm not going there. No.
Yeah, I was going to say there is case law that says it is reversible error to discuss about the invocation of Miranda, even subsequent with a waiving of Miranda. I don't want to get anywhere near that.
You don't think they would be able to review?
I don't want to.
If it was a challenge about the knowing or voluntary waiver of the Miranda, I think the jury would be able to know if there was a first and second.
I don't want to go near it because I don't, as this court has mentioned a few times already, I don't want this case coming back.
Okay, I think as a matter of strategy, Ms. Wood, does that make sense? As a matter of strategy, the statement that you gave the police is probably better if it's introduced in this case. Right?
I mean, yeah, I prefer it to be introduced, but I would also prefer that the first Miranda right also be published to the jury as well, if they know.
Judge, if the defendant is willing to waive any and all appellate rights with that issue, I'll do it. I think it's silly. I think it's reversible. But if she's willing to right now waive any appellate rights to that issue, which I do think is reversible error if I introduce that.
Why don't we do this? Since we ended early, you and Mr. Lamas can talk about it, and I'll have another discussion with you and him tomorrow about that. The reason I haven't looked over the case law, I'm not saying Mr. Rubio is wrong, I'm going to defer to him right now because I haven't looked at that authority. But the purpose of just going into the second Miranda waiver is really to streamline, to make this move a little quicker. And since the second Miranda doesn't refer to the first one, the jury's not going to be confused about what you told the police after waiving your Miranda waiver. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but at this point, God forbid, they find the jury finds me guilty, at least I have another shot at review with that.
We're going to talk to Mr. Tomas. I'm going to do some research on my own, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. The redactions, are you guys are we ready to talk about redactions now?
I can talk about them in the general sense. I have certain timestamps, but I don't have the specifics. What I can tell the court is I'm intending to redact all testimony from the defendant about any arrests of anybody, including my victim and herself. Defense counsel said, I believe it was last week, that he, as far as the second phase of this, should the defendant be found guilty, I said that the only thing that would be coming into evidence is Ms. Link saying she was arrested in the past. Defense counsel said it should be redacted. I agree. But I'm also going to be redacting the portions about my victim being arrested as well. This court has already ruled that those things are not relevant based off of the age of those. Furthermore, I don't think that there's anybody that can authenticate any of his convictions or arrests. The defendant can absolutely testify about this being a volatile relationship, a toxic relationship. I intend to elicit testimony from my detectives.
Any incident from 5 days before?
Sure. I intend to ask my detectives, did Ms. Link advise of acts of violence committed by Pedro Jimenez? Did she also, against her, did she also advise of acts of violence that she committed against him? That is the extent that I'm going to elicit any testimony, no arrest or anything else.
General acts not related to arrest, which, again, an arrest by law enforcement indicates some sort of, for lack of a better phrase, stamp of approval that somehow the police believe that there was enough to arrest
Correct.
either party.
The age of the, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, but it goes to the up and down or the volatility, the toxic nature of a relationship.
Exactly. There's another portion in time when I believe Ms. Link says to Detective Janoris something to the effect of being a victim of domestic violence or something like that against me, and I don't want to call her Melanie. Detective Janoris says, well, you also have been arrested. It goes both ways. I'm also going to be redacting that portion as well. And it's not like beat for beat. It is a very quick, rapid fire conversation that
and then
she.
I read the instruction that lets them know it's redacted.
Yes.
They should not
Yes.
guess as to what was redacted.
Yes.
But that's not final yet. You still need to
Yes. I need to go to lit support and sit down with them and get all those things. We have been able to cut out the portion of time that the defendant is alone, but we need to go through and actually timestamp the portion in time that we need to redact. And then as soon as I get that, I know that they leave. Some of them leave at 4:30, some of them leave at 5. I'm going to do my best to go and speak with them and get those things done. As soon as I get that done from them, I'll send it to Mr. Tomas, even if it's in the morning.
But you've gone over the defense, the areas that you want to redact.
No, because I don't mean to be glib about this. I literally decided today that I was going to be introducing this statement.
So he's proper general areas of redaction.
And I have the transcript, so I'm sure we'll.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a problem. I'm sure we'll.
And if we have to, I'll start with a different witness, even if I have to start with the medical examiner first in the morning, so that way we can go over the statement itself and then go from there.
That's fine. So why don't we do this? Why don't we at least meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. so that if you have anything done, we can go over it.
Absolutely.
And if it's not done, we can at least go through the actual transcripts. We can highlight or underline so that your video folks know which part will be redacted.
Sure.
And then we'll do the research on the case law Link about the first Miranda, maybe coming in, not coming in, and not, you're gonna be in a position to waive any of that. All right, anything else that we have to, come up, talk about before we adjourn for the day?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
See you all tomorrow.